Hello, welcome to Breakfast All Day. I'm Matt. That's Alonso. That's Christy. 2020's over. Thank God. Although 2021's off to a bang.
I was going to say, is it really?
But, there were a lot of movies last year, and we're going to talk about the ones that we think were the best. Who wants to go first?
There were some good ones, and it is a weird thing too, because so many of these movies we watched at home, like all of them, like there's nothing on my top 10 list that I saw in a theater. And there are so many of these films that are so beautiful. And I wish we could have had the collective experience of seeing them in a theater. And that's especially true of my number one. So we're going to all go through and do our number ones. And
two of my top 10 I saw projected, but one was at a festival in 2018.
You're fancy. Okay, so my number one is David Byrne's American Utopia, which is a movie that it just hit me the right way at the right time. And it's exactly the kind of film that I wish I had seen in a theater, because it's such a joyous, rapturous experience. And it's so beautifully shot. And the music is so fantastic. I wish I could have seen it, but it manages to be about everything that's going on in the world right now without doing it in a heavy-handed way. And just the combination of David Byrne's ideology and Spike Lee's aesthetic sensibility and the choreography and the lighting is just, it just knocked me over in a way that like nothing else did. So I loved it. That's my number one. And then I will just quickly go through the rest of my list. The Nest is a very close two for me. And then Sound of Metal. And then I picked Lovers Rock specifically of all of the Small Axe films. I know that we at the LA Film Critics Association picked all the Small Axe films as Best Picture, which people balked at like it's a cheat, whatever. But Lovers Rock, they're all very, very good, but Lovers Rock is just extraordinary. Minari, which we've not talked about yet because it doesn't really come out until like February, I want to say, but it's beautiful and I can't wait to talk about it with you guys. First Cow, Nomadland. Now, here's a movie that I thought was going to come out theatrically in 2020, but did not. And it's called The Killing of Kenneth Chamberlain. It is excellent. It will come out next year. It's based on the true story of this elderly African-American gentleman who accidentally hits the lifeguard button on his necklace or whatever, and the police get called, and it just escalates, and it all takes place in this one little apartment and the hallway outside, and it's gripping. It's like incredibly intense and very efficient cinema. Promising Young Woman is my number 9. And then Collective, which I think might also be on Alonso's list, is my number 10, the Romanian documentary, which is just devastating.
My number 1 is Collective.
Then go for it.
Woo!
Then go do it now. That's a good segue.
So, Christy's top movie was a movie about what's happening in the world right now that is uplifting and makes you feel better. And my number 1 movie is about a thing that's happening in the world right now that will bum the shit out of you because it is stark and really, upsetting. It is very specifically about Romania, but it's about the United States. It's about everywhere else because it is basically this sort of medical scandal that unfolds that we only find out about through the work of dogged journalists at a sports newspaper of all things. But then the way that the corridors of power and the media of power is able to completely change the subject and distract people from the issue at hand. And I just think it's essential viewing, and it's so well put together. This guy somehow manages to mix the filmmaker's name is Alexander Nanau. He manages to fix this sort of Frederick Wiseman level of detachment where there's no score, there's no interviews, there's no chyrons telling you who's who. But at the same time, like this white knuckle suspense editing, it's like nothing I've ever seen before. Absolutely my favorite film of 2020.
Can you explain really fast what it's about, just in like a sentence?
Just in Romania, there's a fire at a nightclub that happens because the government is incompetent, and then more people who should have survived the fire die because people in the hospitals are watering down the disinfectants, and so that leads into this whole like rabbit hole of like corruption and expose. And the closer they get to trying to fix it, and the closer they get to exposing the truth, the more the entrenched power structure completely changes the subject so that people are talking about other shit and are able to get away with it, basically.
And you find out who's on the take, and that's why.
Absolutely.
And it sounds like it'd be really dry. Like, it's a movie about like an investigative report into disinfectant dilution.
Yeah, but no, it's riveting. It is absolutely riveting. And you can rent it, in the places where Amazon, iTunes, that kind of place. I cannot recommend it highly enough.
Yeah,
I took all of Small Axe off the board and just sort of gave it a special commendation because I do think of it as one 5-movie thing, and it just felt weird to put it up against regular feature films. I did the same for Pedro Almodovar's The Human Voice, which is only about half an hour, and as a short, it felt weird putting that up against features as well. So I want to call it Black Box, Small Axe, and the Human Voice I kind of put aside as special commendations, but I didn't include them in my top 10 proper. You can read all this at TheWrap, by the way, but the rest of my list was Driveways, which is the movie that I saw at a festival, which I absolutely adore. It's my favorite narrative film of 2020. First Cow, which is the last movie that I saw in theaters. Frederick Wiseman's City Hall documentary, which is really great. And if you want to watch it, by the way, it is streaming through January 19th for free at the PBS website at pbs.org. It's 4.5 hours long. Make yourself some snacks, settle in. It's a great, great movie.
It flies by though. 4.5 hours about city government sounds boring, but it flies by.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's the hidden thing about these movies. It's like Ebert says, no good movie is too long and no bad movie is short enough. Yeah. Following that is Crip Camp, the documentary we talked about. It's on Netflix. Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always. New Order, which I think, like Christy, I had one in here. It's really not going to open until 2021, but it is a Mexican film from director Michel Franco. It is a terrifying economic fable that should scare rich people into maybe considering why even they aren't benefiting necessarily from economic inequality. That's all I'll say about it, but I can't recommend it enough. So good.
When's it coming out?
I don't know. Neon has it. And so I figured it would have at least had an awards run by now, and it may have. I reviewed it out of some festivals, but keep an eye out for it in 2021. New Order. Great, great movie. Okay. My number 8 was Bacurau. From Kleber Manoel Filho, for the Brazilian film, which was a year for post-apocalyptic films to really land with a bang, and that one totally did. My number 9 was I'm Your Woman, from director Julia Hart, and my number 10 was On the Rocks, the Bill Murray, Rashida Jones comedy from Sofia Coppola. Matt?
Good, interesting choices. Matt, what's yours?
There's a bunch of movies that are on your list that I did not see yet. So that's probably why they're going to be missing from mine. I had a hard time picking what I think is the best movie. So I kind of cheated and went with one of my favorites of the year. The one that I was most surprised by that turned out to be so awesome is The Old Guard on Netflix. Like such a delightful surprise and a killer adaptation of a comic book. And God, I hope we get a sequel. Really, really good movie with Charlize Theron is this woman who's been alive since the ancient Greek era. She can't die. She's run across 3 or 4 other people who can't die, and they've kind of turned into a group that kind of rights wrongs, and somebody figures out, oh, they've got this thing, and maybe they, it's terrific. It's absolutely awesome. My other favorites of the year, movies that I love that I also think were really great in, I put them in alphabetical order rather than rank them. First up, Arch Enemy, which is this indie movie with Joe Manganiello, who plays a guy. He's this homeless drunk who claims to have been basically a Superman from another dimension who's got locked on Earth and has lost all his powers. And it's this really offbeat, gritty take on the idea of superheroes, and it's terrific. It's directed
by Adam Egypt Mortimer.
Yes. Yeah.
Amy Nicholson's boyfriend.
Amy Nicholson's boyfriend, right.
And a la carte alum.
I need to see that one.
I really, really liked it. It's really good. Cool. Driveways, one of his best performances ever. Huge loss that we lost him. I really like the Go-Go's documentary.
Oh yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, the Go-Go's documentary was terrific, and as much as I was a fan of the Go-Go's, it comes up with a lot of stuff that you didn't necessarily know. And in spite of the band's participation, it is pretty good about telling story, like letting you. It's not totally warts and all, but it definitely shows you some stuff that you wouldn't normally get from a doc that's got somebody's participation in it.
They're very candid about the mistakes.
Very
they made.
candid.
Yeah.
I would love, I'm kind of including all of Small Axe on this, but Lovers Rock was my favorite of those 5 as well. I can't remember his first name. David Cronenberg's son's movie, Possessor. Brandon Cronenberg's Possessor, which is freaky and wild. And as much as Cronenberg is establishing his own voice as a filmmaker, you definitely see some of his father's influence. Also, crazy that Cronenberg himself, David Cronenberg, has been showing up in this season of Star Trek Discovery. Wild to see him in front of the camera. I'm not sure why they decided to do that, but they did.
Well, they're in Canada. I mean, what the heck?
Yeah. So Possessor is great. It's about a kind of corporate espionage secret agent who spies by basically getting inserted in other people's bodies, and she assassinates people, and her later, like, you could see that there's signs that she's forgetting who she is, and the lines blur, and it's absolutely terrific performance by Andrea Riseborough in this.
It's very trippy, very original.
Luxor, but great movie. Promising Young Woman, absolutely loved. Another really indie movie that didn't get a lot of notice but should have is Rent-A-Pal with Will Wheaton.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, it's bonkers. It's really bonkers and shockingly emotional. And it's set in kind of a VHS era. This guy takes this tape home, and it's similar. It's got a bit of video dating in it, but then there's also, like, he grabs this tape that it's like, hey, here's your pal on the video, and it's Will Wheaton is only ever inside the TV talking to this guy, and it's nuts. It's absolutely nuts, and it's twisted, and it goes in directions you never expect, and I loved it.
Cool.
Another one that's twisted, actually most of my movies are like this. Run.
I've heard good things about that. I still haven't watched it.
Tell me what I've seen. Run. Remind me.
The Sarah Paulson Hulu movie.
Run, the Hulu movie with
Sarah Paulson.
Oh,
Sarah Paulson.
It's really well made. Yeah.
It's so over the top, and
it's from the guys who did Searching.
Yeah, Run is.
Yes, it's very good.
Yeah, Sarah Paulson just hamming it up and chewing the scenery, and it's perfect, and it's awesome, and it's tense and wild and great. It's absolutely great. And my last one that's kind of in the twisted zone is Swallow. Really loved Swallow. That one was also good too, about a young woman played
Haley
by
Bennett.
Haley Bennett, who's got this condition called pica, where she swallows things, and the things that she continues to swallow get scarier and scarier, and it's really a character piece. It's less about the disease. I mean, it's as much about that, but it's very much a kind of psychological horror / thriller. So those are my movies, because 2020 was a twisted year, and so the movies I liked were twisted.
That makes sense. I came very close to having Swallow on my list, Matt. That's one that was like sort of hanging in there for a while, but then, you only get 10 slots. So.
I liked the look of it. I liked Bennett's performance. It was, I think it's no safe, that's, but anyway, if you look at my list on TheWrap, I have a very long list of runners up of films like The Photograph and Another Round, and a lot of,
The Photograph.
There was a lot to like this year, even though it was a shit year to end all years, but
it's funny. People ask, like, oh, there must not be a whole lot for you to do since movie theaters aren't open. It's like, actually, no, there's more.
And well, it's funny because, like, I wasn't going to write a worst list, and my editor was like, oh, well, maybe you should look into that. And I started going down the list. It's like, oh no, I could do a worst list.
Oh yes.
Well, that's a whole separate thing.
For that.
Yeah, no, I wasn't going to do one either until I saw the movie that Alonso, you told me you're going to want to write a worst list when you see this, and you're right. So we'll get to that next.
Yeah, so join us for that one. But in the meantime, thanks for watching this video where we're keeping it positive. Like it and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us at BeFastAllDay on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/BeFastAllDay. Lots of fun, exclusive stuff for our subscribers. TV recaps of Bridgerton and as of next week, WandaVision. So you'll want to check that out and other cool stuff that only our subscribers get. So check that out. Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys next time. Bye.